Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, I want to talk about Scientology, John Travolta, and Kelly Preston. Well, Scientology has always been gossiping or shouting, screaming, and hitting people in the head with how wonderful they are. How they have all these treatments, and Tom Cruise was out there hawking the treatments that supposedly were being performed on firefighters from the 9/11 building explosion done by the government. And supposedly helping so many people. Well, I don't know. I mean, they certainly don't publicize anything good they do, and it's hard to locate their literature, everything else. What we hear is some very negative things about them, which there's so much of it. I guess we have to look at it to what is going on here. And I've looked through quite a bit of it, and from what I can find out is that most people's gripes about Scientology seem to be valid at one degree or another. I mean, even the head of Scientology's father came out against him, and they have this very nasty way about them, which, if they were doing some really good work, can you blame them? I don't know. But it is very dictatorial. I've heard some very terrible things of what they've done. People who it's notorious for them bleeding you dry. And I did talk to a Scientologist once, and they will recommend you go out and sell your car so that you have the thousands to give them, even if you can't get to work. So they are geared towards getting all your money, and every special I've ever seen has them constantly having people taking out loans for them, buying stuff that apparently they don't really need. They're not growing as an organization anywhere in the world, but they are cash rich and own a huge amount of properties. And for what particular purpose? We also see the representatives that they have of lifestyles, and certainly these people are not showing much of a great lifestyle. Now, Tom Cruise is an odd little twig himself, and what are we to make of him? Well, like so many people that I have problems with, including Richard Gere, who's the big Buddha boy, they never seem to marry people from, if he's so much into Tibetans, why doesn't he marry a Tibetan? Why isn't he into somebody who is from that culture? I mean, a lot of people do this from different cultures that they were interested in. So the whole idea is to have someone from that particular culture that you can relate to better. This is not overly shocking, yet they don't do it. Apparently, from the belt down, Richard Gere is 100% hillbilly male. So, I mean, this is a guy who wanted to become a priest, and certainly doesn't seem to do that. I mean, the only person who's actually done this is a person who has one of the worst reputations, and that's Steven Seagal, who his last marriage is to a Mongolian woman who he's so into Asian culture, even though he was married to a Japanese girl initially, and then of course when he got popularity, married himself some hot looking models. So, and I guess that's normal if you can do that as a person who's now a celebrity. But he did marry a Japanese girl to begin with, and that's where he learned Aikido from, was her father, who apparently started it or was the master. I'm not sure, all that stuff. Who cares? But needless to say, I mean, he did walk his talk, and people like to criticize him the most of anybody. And here we go with the Scientologists again, who constantly telling us how they have the answers to everything. They pretty much state that when you get to the end of Scientology, which basically is based on occult principles, because L. Ron Hubbard was first and foremost an occultist who just kind of formed a church because he figured that's the way you make money, and pretty much went out and stated that fact. And of course, Basic Scientology, the Dianetics book that he wrote. I mean, there's some good information there in the Basic Scientologist system when you take all the politics out of it and psychoticness and their goofball little lie detectors, which of course is part of their whole system. certainly there is something there in the grossness of it. But, there's many other systems that will evolve you better and faster than that. And, of course, IGOS has the perfect, easy-to-follow system, yet you got to follow it. And, of course, people don't want to center themselves. They don't want to do occult gym practices, so they don't grow in power. Well, you can't do that in Scientology. You're expected to devote your entire life to them, show up all the time, and donate lots of money. And of course, they separate family. All this stuff goes on and on. So what are we to do about this? So who knows what is the truth here? Certainly there's so much negative press of people being totally taken of every penny and committing suicide. It goes on and on and on. There's so many horror stories that there has to be some sort of truth to it, including forcing people to sleep in car parks and everything else while they were being conditioned. What people will go through and how they're manipulated is quite shocking. But let's get past all that stuff. There's enough there to condemn it, and certainly there are many more positive. But they were always telling you how if you complete their system, you're going to be a person who has great empowerment. You're going to have extreme abilities. They also state that they know the secrets to healing and everything else, yet we don't really see that. Now, poor John Travolta, who has bad press on every way, and many people consider him still struggling with homosexuality or that he is bisexual. Who knows? Which Scientology is against, by the way. Who knows if that's true or not? Apparently he had 3 children. I think it's his children with Kelly Preston, who he's been sharing time. Now, what their real relationship is, who knows? Again, who cares? These are personal things. The bottom line is that in July 12th of 2020, she died at home from breast cancer that she was diagnosed with 2 years earlier at the age of 57. Now, a lot of people have been cured of breast cancer, and for many. Now, they claim to have all these treatments. They claim to be at the cutting edge of everything. They claim that they have control over the life force. They claim that you will have supernatural abilities. Where are they? Let's go back to Tom Cruise a little bit here. Well, he's not been able to keep a wife. Every wife does the typical Hollywood marriage. They sign contracts, and of course, you get to cash in on that Hollywood marriage after 10 years, where you get a large settlement. And during the process, you usually, within 10 years, have a child, so that guarantees you income for that child for at least 20 years. So until they're 18, or at least 18 years, you want to be exact. And of course, they get a X amount of money because these prenuptial agreements talk about how much money you get in a relationship when you leave it. And what a contract. Talk about prostitution, a reason why women don't get much respect. So after 10 years, you have a big paycheck, and of course, you make sure that you have children in the interim. They all do this. So you're pretty much guaranteed for life to have income to do this. So it's really just a business agreement. Now, he has not been able to keep any marriages, even to his original Scientology girlfriend. Did he marry her? Yes, he did. Mimi Rogers, the actress who got him into Scientology, apparently. And of course, they were married for only 3 years, apparently, when he first started out. But that got him into Hollywood and got him the connections he needed, and apparently got him connected to Scientology, which apparently she is no longer, as far as I understand, like every other woman he's married. So, and of course, Nicole Kidman did the exact same thing. She was with him for 11 years. And I don't know if they adopted or whatever, but of course she got in on the wallet of his. But here we go. At least Mimi Rogers, who introduced him, was a Scientologist. Now, why he couldn't get along with her and only stayed with her for 3 years is interesting, because that should have been a marriage made in heaven. Well, Scientology failed there. And of course, Nicole Kidman, the Australian sexy little babe, certainly this was a plan of getting in Hollywood and certainly worked well for her. She established herself and, of course, is known for her nude roles and sex roles, which a lot of actresses apparently in Hollywood won't do. But certainly, Scientology also is well embedded in Hollywood, and we're not just talking about actors. This was part of L. Ron Hubbard's plan, and having a huge facility in Hollywood is that many directors and other people are Hollywood connected. Then, of course, 2006, he married Katie Holmes, basically a naive young Catholic girl that he, with his great Scientology powers, was going to mold into his perfect woman. I guess none of these, of course, these last two wives were not connected to Scientology. They had to go there as part of the requirements of being with Tomo. And of course, she left after only 6 years. But they did have, I think, had a few children together. As such, she is taken care of for the rest of her life. And I don't know what she got after 6 years, but I'm assuming it was quite a bit. We can guarantee it's millions. I mean, this guy is worth a fortune, and of course obviously is a very successful actor in his own way. So I mean, here we go again with these types of things. And of course, you know, there is some positive aspects to Simon. There's positive aspects to everything. I mean, Hitler built autobahns. Well, does that make him a great guy? Because they did a little something. It's the same thing with Scientology. Certainly they have some of these things, some interesting things, but, you know, there's so many better systems out there. It isn't. But he was unable to even keep a wife. And it seems to be going down. His first wife, 3 years. And that were two Scientologists together in Scientology pig heaven. Couldn't get along. I'm assuming that he stayed with Nicole because they were so busy in Hollywood that they were able to keep that relationship going so she could cash in a little bit more on that relationship. I mean, that's what Hollywood does. I mean, why should we beat around the bush? People are married, have dates because the publicists do it. This is something that's been going on for years, and they make sure they do this with people who are bisexual and gay. Well, they'll get married. You'll get a lesbian woman marrying a gay guy, so they can have different relations, but in the actual understanding to the public, they are actually heterosexual. So these things go on all the time. But these are agreements for one reason or another. This happens all the time in life and in Hollywood, particularly. These are agreements. Everybody does it for a reason. It's a business deal. And we don't know. Here again, everybody's sexuality is questioned. I have no idea. Tom Cruise has fought that, claiming that he has this. But, you know, they always claim everybody as a homosexual, and the cuter they are. They don't seem to, the gay community doesn't seem to grab onto and claim ugly gay actors or women. But the cute guys, of course, they want to do. So who knows with all that? I don't really care. I'm not sure what that means with anything anyway. But certainly Scientology has not been able to prove that they have any kind of empowerment when it comes down to any kind of illnesses. L. Ron Hubbard himself died at a pretty young age. I believe he was 72 or something. He didn't even make it to the actual common life expectancy, which is 78. Yes, he died at 74. And had chronic pancreas disease. So he was far from having the secrets and the mind control to keep himself well. So here we go again. Now, without spending too much further time here, I mean, it's a very confusing thing to go over in terms of what's going on here, but certainly he didn't live long. 74 years old, as he said, with an average life expectancy, which is considered around 78. He didn't even make it to that. Most people are living into their mid-80s now without a problem, yet he couldn't do that. And was suffering from all sorts of things, and there's talk that he was quite mentally ill at the time. We don't know again. This is speculation. It's hard to say. But we do know the case of John Travolta, who's had one medical tragedy after another in his life, with his son dying, and all the problems that he's had with his son, etc. And now, of course, with his wife dying only 2 years after being diagnosed with breast cancer, which a lot of people do get. Now, he has no, and believing in a lot of alternative and natural treatments, I can't find that she ever had any of these done. But of course, we don't know. Maybe she took some natural stuff or treatments, etc. We just don't know. We'll probably never know. I mean, he was criticized with his son for not treating him with his autistic son who suffered seizures. He was criticized for not using conventional medical treatments. We don't really know what the story is. And of course, Scientology is known for its purification rundown, as they call it. And this is a method of healing yourself. This purification rundown was touted by them using exercise, vitamins, and mineral supplements to be a cure-all for most everything, and of course, helping people with drug addictions. Well, I'm assuming it is that, of course, she went through this program and it failed. So their natural treatments certainly their mind power doesn't do anything. Their technologies to do anything don't work, at least not within the Travolta family. And here we get, which is a fairly common illness that many people survive, which is breast cancer. They were unable to handle. So, and of course, she died at the young age of 57, meaning that she was a fairly young. She wasn't an old person who couldn't handle this. So, but breast cancer is a horrible killer and something that, but even supposedly with her natural treatments, natural diets, and all the other things, we're not sure if she really followed any of these things, but Scientology tends to preach these things. Certainly did her absolutely no good, and certainly wasn't able to maintain this. Now, there's an awful lot of treatments, alternative treatments for cancer, and particularly breast cancer, all over the world. And the answer that Scientology gave to them and Travolta family decided to take was to take the allopathic route and go to one of the finest murdering hospitals in the country, as happened with Linda McCartney and other people. I believe went to Arizona Cancer Clinic, and she went to the cancer clinic based in Anderson Cancer Center at the University of Texas. So, which is one of these, it's the largest cancer center in the U.S. and one of the original 3 comprehensive cancer centers in the country. So they have all the top people there, all the people that are going to help you, all the traditional science, the multi-million-dollar treatments, the egg-headed doctors who went to their criminal medical schools, and of course, like all these people do, they hastened her death, which is so typical. So typical of these things, as they did with Linda McCartney. So she went to the best common allopathic medical practices, and as I said, they probably wouldn't advertise that they tried other things, but maybe they did and these failed, because that's what most people do. But when the push comes to shove and you have a lot of money, you go to these expensive cancer places thinking that they do anything. And I'd like to know what their actual history of cures is. What percentage of people walk in there and actually walk out? I would really like to know what that number is, if we can even get any kind of real answers from any of these people. So certainly it's a luxury place where all the richy people go, but you know, I've seen these things, and this institute, like so many others, they even have the T. Boone Pickens Academic Tower, a 21-story building donated by him, who donated it to the cancer side. This is what you find in all these rich places, and I found this particularly in the Coachella Valley and the Palm Springs area, where you find these hospitals where all the rich people go, and then they donate all this money. Good luck, nothing really happens there. People just die like anything else. So we run into these things where people are giving hundreds of millions of dollars. Here's another guy, also Nayan, California Nayan, who donation gave $150 million to the center. How nice. So, it's so nice, all this stuff. And of course, another 18 million, all this stuff there. This is the problem with all this stuff and what has come of it. And they're not really doing anything. And cancer rates are going up and the cure rates are going down. They're actually, more people are dying from cancer than before. So they went to this University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center. So, and this is where she spent the time and got her treatments at, and then came home to die in Florida. So this is one of those things that certainly shows that Scientology is not on the cutting edge of anything except on the cutting edge of John Travolta's money, who has who lives in a housing complex where that has giant runways so they can park their huge jets here. I believe he has a 747 or something. So it's not just regular jets. These are for huge jets because he has so much money. But, money's not going to save you if you're not smart. And he's not smart, or he wouldn't be in Scientology to begin with. So the whole idea is that, this is what happens when you believe in things that are bogus. And you're going to pay. Now he's paid. His son is dead. His wife is dead. And if he gets sick, he gonna die. So I don't know how well his actual reality is either. So we just don't know. But she died in Clearwater, Florida, which of course is the Scientology headquarters area. So what are we to make of all this? Well, we know what to make of all this stuff, that Scientology really has achieved nothing. And their whole belief system is in great question. While there is some interesting aspects of Scientology, and maybe even using some lie detectors to actually detect some sort of emotional stress in a particular subject area, this certainly has done nothing. Their founder died at a very young age, himself at 74. People don't seem to be having long, prosperous, healthy relationships. Certainly Tom Cruise can't keep a wife. He's went through 3 already. How many more is that going to happen, being in the empowered Scientology reality? So it just, it doesn't add up. And here we go again with a person who is wealthy, who we assume relatively fit, who is fairly young at 57, develops breast cancer, and once she was diagnosed, she was dead 2 years later, after following a 2-year battle. Well, that's pretty quick, and all of the actual allopathic treatments, I'm sure she was nuked. They're usually, science, that's what science answers to everything. Let's burn it. Yeah, let's burn it. That's exactly what they do. And of course, that's what chemotherapy is. Poison. They poison your immune system. Yes, it kills the cancer, but it kills you. Then they burn it with radiation, and this is how they operate. So what does this mean in terms of the bigger picture? Well, certainly, it's a condemnation of 2 things. First of all, she went to the finest place for cancer probably considered in the world, if you're talking about allopathic conditions. Many people from around the world come there, which is why they have these Arabs who donated hundreds of billions of dollars. They went there because they got sick. And of course, they died. Thank you, doctors. So the whole idea is that all of these things seem to be the problem. So they went to the best place that money could buy. And of course, that doesn't mean that solves or saves you. You think it does, and we all run to the doctors thinking, well, you're good guys and learned real medicine, so we can help you. Well, they haven't. They're criminal mafia people, and they will kill you. Plain and simple. And there's lists of people curing themselves with a few pennies worth of different supplements, as has been noted by the fantastic books that I give you links online to. You've got to check those books out on cancer, which really give you the true story. And what's interesting is that Mark Sloan's books, which actually also give you treatments, which people claim to have cured them for pennies. Well, certainly it didn't work with her. So they didn't have technology, and of course, Travolta being the high stratus Scientologist who has availed to everybody and everything, unlike the average person who's kind of kept like a peasant in the background, he could talk to all the biggie mucky mucks in Scientology and get all the information. And what did they do? Well, nothing. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, period. People, she's dead. I mean, there's no refuting that. Oh, she's not dead. She's sleeping. Just sleeping. We'll wake her up in another 10 years. Well, I mean, this is not, they're dead. So the point is that they failed, and they failed with everybody in his family, which seems to be, whether it's part of his family or from birth, who are ill. They could handle none of it. So this is pretty sad. And of course, when we get into, I don't know of any illnesses within Tom Cruise's family, but certainly his great mental control and extreme empowerments, and the fact that he thinks he knows and can do everything from a horrible egotistical viewpoint, from what I can tell. Who knows these people? But the bottom line is that he certainly was unable to control 3 different women, or even get along with them to a certain degree where they could stay in love with each other and grow as people, individuals, and as a couple. They divorced. This doesn't speak well on the social front and also on the actual physical front. So, I mean, what does Scientology have to offer you then? Well, from what I can see, nothing. And whatever distortions, which seem to be dramatic now, how they manipulate people and just everybody is paying them all this money, and they're apparently happy to do it. Mostly stupid white people, apparently, who are so grasping for some sort of reality in life that they have to follow people that abuse them. Is shocking in life, but so typical of people in general. So with all their great centers, all their great purification, all their great systems, which Cruz was screaming about how wonderful it was and how they were saving all these firefighters and detoxing them, and I'm not sure what happened to all that stuff. Apparently there were some results from that, and of course you're going to get results from detoxes. But certainly they were unable to handle cancer with vitamin and a little bit of exercise. They don't seem to be very advanced in the medical area, nor investing much money in there, or nor do they have alternative healing programs or looking into that. And you have to wonder why. If you really are rich, you want to make sure that you live longer. And that means you want to make sure you're looking into the anti-aging technologies and health technologies in general. Well, apparently they don't. And they don't have a hospital. They don't have facilities. They're not doing any of this, even though there are doctors who are Scientologists. And they do tend to go to them. Well, if they went to one of them at the Texas Center here, which could be quite possible, he failed. And the dead body is there to prove it. There's no discussions, just like so many other things, just like the fraudulent German doctors who treat people for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, the proof is there. Their bodies are there. They're dead. They're in graveyards, or they've been scattered to the wind. But regardless of what you do with the body, it's still a dead body. Until next time.